Alright, welcome to the avoidance game here at iTest. What we're going to do to start off like we normally do is we're going to click at the pre-made background and pre-made sprite here. We're going to download this here. And now we're pretty much ready to rock and roll. So what we're going to do here is we're going to click remix. That way we can remix it and save it to our own. And we're going to call this, I'm just going to call it Dodgeball Remix and iTest. So now I have my loaded up there, and you can see that the page is already made. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a new sprite. So down at the bottom we have our new sprite there. You can pick a multitude of different things. You can see in your step-by-step directions there is a couple different options. What I do suggest with that is that you make sure that you stick with one of those options, just to the fact that you're going to see that there are multiple things in there. So I'm just going to use Pico here, and I'm going to pick Pico Walking, which is one of the choices that you're given based off from the step-by-step directions. And you can see that he's a little on the big side. So what we're going to do is just going to modify that real quick with the costume setup. With this, what we want to do is we want to just make him a little bit smaller. So we're going to take him and we're going to kind of squeeze him down to size here, per se. So the big thing here is making sure that all your aspects are staying the same. So I'm going to grab in the upper right hand corner, drag him down to size here. Seems about relative, so you can see that I changed to a 4457. So with all of these now I have to make sure that they change to about a 4457, so that when you switch from costume to costume it doesn't look like they're getting a little distorted per se. So there's another 4457. Take the next one here and end up with 4457. As you can see, this is a little bit of time consuming here, but something that needs to be done. So another 4457, and last but not least here, move this one down to 4557, just a little bit more. And that's too much. Looks like 4557 is the best. I'm going to get this one here. Based off from the change. The other thing that we need to make sure that we do here is just realign based off of the coordinate planes. So to do that, we want to make sure that we get our hash marks and then click right in the middle of him on each one of these transitions, because as you can see there is a distortion, so you want to click mainly in the same spot so you don't have any glitches when you're looking at some of these. So you can see that this can be a little bit time consuming just to get set up, but later down the road it'll make it much nicer as we look at our character here. So kind of check through all of this. What I like to do is I like to kind of run through the costumes step by step, see if there's any movement, if there's any upward, downward movement at all, based off from that. And you can see that this one has a little bit more of an upward drag, so I'm just going to clean that up a little bit here. And now if I swing through these, it looks like majority stays in the same place and is now just walking. So set the sprite up, have our new sprite here. We have them now walking, so now the big piece is to actually indeed make them walk. So what I want to do is I want to have our little guy start in one spot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put him down at the starting spot, and for this game it's going to be down here. Again, you have your coordinates and all that good stuff, but we're going to look at the script. And first thing, line of code that we're going to do here is when click this, we want to put it in a control loop. So we want to forever do this. And what we're going to be looking at is a if-then statement. So when we look at an if-then statement, we're actually going to start setting the control. So we're going to say if this is then what? Well, we're going to be looking for the key. So we want to have the key, and we're looking for the right arrow here. So you can do right arrow, And what do we want it to do? Well, we want it to point in a certain direction. So based off from that, we need our motion. So we're going to point in direction of 90, because remember 90 tells us that's to the right, and that's the position in which he is in right now. Looking at our first costume, let me make sure that we're selected on the first costume. See that he has a little bit of a jump there, so we want to make sure he's lined up with that. So 90, move step. So again, this is customizable based off from your speed. For us, we want just 3 right now. And then what we want it to do is change its appearance or looks. So we want it to actually move to what we consider the next costume. So by doing so, now by holding the right key, you can see that as I move right, it makes him look like he's kind of walking. It looks a little dismembered there, but again, that might be having to deal with some of the alignments based off from the pixelations, and again, changing some of the costumes. So if you go back into the costumes, as you look through this to make sure that everything's smooth, you can see that he appears to stay in the exact same spot. Again, I'm having a little bit of an issue with this first one. It seems like it's a little bit too high. Again, it's kind of user choice if you like it or don't like it. As you can see now, it starts to kind of jump up a little ways. Another thing that we could do here is actually, just to make this easier, we can actually, since he's going to be moving, we can put the bottom piece here as the feet, given what we're going to be doing. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this all together now and put this on the bottom as the point of contact or the center of my guy here, so that now as I switch through these, you can see that he moves in a straight line with no jumping around or anything like that. So that is just a check for movement. So now what we have is just simple movement to the right, and what we're going to look at now is, can we make him move around a little bit more? So as you're moving down in your things, you can see that, okay, you can move to the right, runs that, so you move to the right. Does it look like they're walking? In our case, yes it does. To move the character to the left, now what you need to do is add another if block and a forever loop. So what we can do here is duplicate this, and we only really need this inside piece. So what we want to do now is that we want to move now, say, to the left. So now if we're moving to the left arrow, we need to see, okay, well, which direction do we want to point? Let's just try 90 here. And as we do that, you can see that he moves to the right, but now he flips upside down. So one of the problems there is we want to be focusing on an actual movement. So when we flip left and right, you can see that he flips up and down the plane in which he is on. One of the things to do that is by clicking on the eye, you can actually change your rotation. Instead of being 360 degrees, you can do a left to right transition. So now as you're doing that, you can move to the right, and now you can also move to the left. So if we move our little guy back down to the starting point, here you can move left and you can move right, and it makes him look like as if he is walking. Okay, you can also add a block of code, as you can see in your directions. You can set rotation type. By doing that, you can set your rotation style to left hand, right hand, but it really doesn't matter. To climb the pink ladder, your character should move slightly whenever the up arrow is pressed. So in this case, we have to have a little bit of a command piece. So if we're looking at this in types of control, we want to say if, and now we're putting another if clause in there. Well, we have to use an operating piece, so we want to have this and that. So in this case, if this and that are happening, then what's going to take place? Well, we're going to use our sensing piece, so we want to be sensing something. And the thing that we want to be sensing is that color pink here. So again, you click on it and you can click on the color pink. And we also want to be clicking a button. So the thing that we're going to be looking at here is the key. Okay, so key up, and we want the up arrow. Okay, then what do we want to do? Well, we want to change its motion. And we want to change its motion, but we only want to change it in the Y direction. So we want to change the Y by, say, 10. Seems a little fast, so we're going to move that down to 4. So now what we can do is we can test our character. We're going to walk over, and as we walk over here, we can see that I am touching the pink, so I can move up and down, or I should say up. We haven't coded the down yet. So if we want to put a down code in here, Okay, you can see that this shows that you are only moving in a certain direction here. So when we're dealing with this, we want to move up by 4, but also if we add another one, so a quick way, again, remember to do this is to duplicate your line of code. So we want to duplicate this, and I'm only interested in this bottom piece here. So if touching this and I click the down arrow, instead of being a +4, we want to change by the same speed, so now you have a -4. So again, this is kind of like the classic Donkey Kong as you climb up the ladder. So now you can see that, oh, I'm going up it or I'm moving down it, and then I can move to the other piece, and then I can ultimately get to my end goal, which is going to be this green door here. So again, you can see now that I'm climbing up and down things, but one of the things is that we don't have any gravity yet. So you can move up and down gravity, or without gravity, I should say, until you are in contact with something. And again, now you can see that I'm not quite actually in contact with the color pink, which is some problems that we're going to clean up as we continue. So to complete step 1, what we want to do is make sure that we save our project. So save now, and we know that we are saved as Dodgeball Remix with iTest.